Hello, bruvs. We're back with Heinz Evis's Vampire, a 1934 translation of the book, and we are on chapter 9. This is the second part. I stopped it arbitrarily because the chapter was like 30, 40 pages long, so we did half, and now we are on the second half. Forget it, as he had forgotten the Feast of Roses, and the kind priest, and the abbess. Life was so rich. He had not thought of the episode until today, not until the old song lifted the veil from these happenings of the past. The organ was playing softly, and from the garden came the sweet strain of far-off voices. Too distant to be understood, carrying only the melody into the great hall. And now a full-throated voice took up the song. A rich, full voice, sweet and strong, like love's fervent faith. There is only one woman in the whole world who can sing like this, Andre said. The voice sang, and now one could understand the words. Jesu, dulcis memoria, dans vera cordi gaudia. Rosius nodded. What a heavenly voice. A solemn procession marched in slowly from the garden. 40 Dominican sisters walking in pairs, moving their lips as if in silent prayer as they fingered the beads of their rosaries. Slowly they circled the room, curtsying low as they passed the abbess's throne and finally assembled in the center of the hall. Eva Lockman's voice alone rang through the silent hall. I wonder how much she is getting for it, Andre whispered. I bet she doesn't sing in this circus for less than 3,000. Now the voice stopped, and the guests applauded as if at the opera. But Suzanne Pierpont rose from her throne and made a sign with her hand indicating that the number was not yet over. So the guests lapsed silent again and waited. Again the nuns' chorus took up the song, but now in full voice, a chorus of 40 women. Now you are going to hear something, Doctor, Andre laughed. These are my chorus girls whom I lent to Miss Pierpont for the party. My conductor rehearsed them for 2 weeks, and it nearly drove him crazy. The girls began, Nil cantatur suavius. Just go ahead and read it, because I don't know what the hell I'm saying, so... But they pronounced it as if it were English. Yeah, that's what I was doing. Jazzing it and making it sound like ragtime. A Latin ragtime screamed at the top of their lungs by worn-out musical comedy voices. Was this your conductor's idea? Frank Braun asked. I should say not, the director laughed. He fought against it tooth and nail, but Susan Pierpont wanted it. She said it would put life into the party, and that it was a good prelude to the burlesque part of the entertainment. Don Cesar made a painful grimace at the awful noise, but the... So apparently we're going to do this bullshit again where the fucking app just shuts off after 2 minutes. Come on. Get back to your normal frame. Don Cesar made a painful grimace at the awful noise, but the abbess and her guest enjoyed it immensely. Susan Pierpont was the first to applaud, and now the other guests were also allowed to, the number being over. Why don't the girls dance it? Rosius asked. They might as well do it properly if they're going to do that kind of thing. Because they are nuns, don't you see? Andre explained. And because this is America, my young friend, it is all right to sing ragtime, but dance it? No. The Lord might get really peeved at such blasphemy. As the nuns left the stage, buffoons tumbled into the hall. Pulcinello, Arlequino, and Pantalone, Fracassa, Columbine, and Isabella, Brigella, Scaramuccio, and Santarello. Obviously, the director must have tried hard to teach these good people how to behave, but it would have been easier to train old bulldogs for Italian buffoonery than these men. They waved their arms, making ridiculous gestures that were anything but the antics of Italian buffoons. How do you like little Columbine? Andre asked. A nice little girl, isn't she? Her name is Davies, from the Knickerbocker Theater, Susan Pierpont's youngest favorite. There was applause when the buffoons had finished. Footmen brought in trays with cake and ice, lemonade and ice water. Every guest was given a silk bag filled with candy. Thanks, bruv. Is there no wine in this place? Rosius asked disgustedly. You are in New York, young man. Don't forget, Director Andre said. Go to one of the bars. The nearest one is out there in the conservatory, and you'll get all the champagne and wine and whiskey you want. Hello, bruvs. A horde of women rushed on the stage in a wild dance that was supposed to be bacchantic. Their legs, arms, and shoulders were naked, and they had only thin colored veils around their middles and fastened across their shoulders. There are the nuns again, the director explained. They have changed into courtesans now. Such is life. The abbess rose from her throne, opened her silk bag, and threw the candy on the stage, beckoning her guests to do likewise. Hello, bruvs. The girls immediately got down on all fours, gathering up the candy as fast as they could. Some rolled up their draperies and used them as aprons. Others pretended to fight with each other for the spoils. Finally, the herald blew his trumpet as a signal for the girls to stop. The master of ceremonies stepped down from the platform to act as referee while the footman counted the candy. A skinny girl with long, scrawny legs was pronounced the winner with a total of 137 pieces of candy. She received a diamond-studded bracelet from the abbess as the first prize. Then the girls lined up in a row at the back of the hall while the athletes marched in to the strains of the gladiators' march. Do you recognize them? Andre grinned. The wrestlers from Manhattan Opera House. Go ahead, Rosius. You worked there last summer. Tell us, who is the fat one, the one without a neck? Rosius rattled off their names like a trained barker. Periard Le Calas. Next to him, ladies and gentlemen, you see Vladik Zbyszko from Krakow, and beside him, Abergen Lurik. We also have with us Luigi Mazzantini, whose real name is Muller, whichever it is, and who used to be the chef on the Kronprinzessin Sicily. Then there is Albert First, the pride of Hernals, ordinarily waiter in the Hotel Plaza, Linov, the Cossack, Heaven Pa, the star of Finland. That's enough, thank you, Andre cried. Your inside information is really amazing. The wrestlers wore narrow loincloths, no tights, not even trunks. While they stood awkwardly about the room, footmen brought in 12 large mats and stretched them out on the floor. The herald let the athletes draw lots from a helmet and then announced how they would be matched. Upon a signal, the men stepped onto their mats and began wrestling, 12 pairs at once. It was an exhibition, of course, with Nelson, cravats, and headlocks to make the bouts spectacular. Some of the wrestlers used the Greco-Roman style, others catch as catch can. Their wrestling would have seemed tame to a connoisseur, but who in this audience knew anything about it? Naked flesh and strong muscles for the women to feast their eyes on. That was the idea. The Cossack Linov furiously bared his teeth when his opponent freed himself from his long ape's arms, and the Finn Heavenpaw played the wild man. He shouted and bellowed like a berserk, shook his fist at his opponent and at the public. That was his line. That was what he was paid for. Burchard, the master of ceremonies, acted as referee, and the wrestlers made his job easy enough. Whenever he stepped to one of the mats, a man would fall and remain pinned to the floor with both shoulders, as if nailed there. Mormons or J-dubs? Well, I pick or. Winner Lindstrom, the Swedish giant, the master of ceremonies, announced winner Winnetow, the Comanche chief. His name is Huber, and he works for a butcher, Rosius laughed. Winner Sam Einstein, the hope of the East Side. The master of ceremonies continued. Winner Pirard Calas. The master of ceremonies led the 12 winners over to the other side, to the courtesans who were to be the prizes for the heroes. But this piece of comedy was much harder for the strong men than any wrestling match. Each of the men was supposed to choose a girl. They were to act fiercely, grasp one of the girls, lift her up, and carry her away by force. And the courtesans were to devour the heroes with eager eyes, spurring them on, and then, at the last moment, pretend to be frightened by so much strength and brutal power, cry and defend themselves. But the eyes of the chorus girls did not devour anything, and the naked wrestlers acted like embarrassed schoolboys at their first dancing lesson. The Comanche chief Huber clicked his heels and stood at attention before his girl as if he were asking the wife of his sergeant major for a dance at the emperor's birthday ball. The pride of Hernals gallantly offered an arm to his lady, and Pirard Lecas Calas, I cannot say that name, weight 300 pounds, and with a round head as bald as a billiard ivory, stood there helpless, not knowing what to do. Only Heavenpaw, the roaring Finn, acted his role well. Smacking his lips and emitting gurgling sounds, he cast his bull's eyes from one girl to the other, as if he wanted them all at once. Suddenly he rushed at Jim Hawkins, the Black Pearl, who had just given his hand to a thin, anemic girl. With a wild roar, clutched the girl away from him, lifted her upon his shoulders, and carried her triumphantly through the room. The girl became genuinely frightened and cried for help, kicking and screaming, to the immense delight of the abbess and her guests. As soon as the men had disappeared through the doors into the conservatory, they released their girls and went to one side, while the girls walked off to the other. Now my girls are through, Andre said. Now they can dress and go home. They get $100 for the evening and $10 extra for each rehearsal. Quite good pay, don't you think? And what about the wrestlers? Rosius asked. I don't know, the director said. They probably get much more. Besides, their main job hasn't begun yet. They are going to stay here, and they will be given all the food and drink they want and more. Then, when they are properly soaked, they will be let loose on the moon, ladies. With a flourish of trumpets, the herald announced the end of the entertainment. The abbess rose from her chair and walked down the platform on the arm of Cesar. The orchestra started to play, and on the stage people began to dance. The three men walked through the conservatory to the next bar, where men and women crowded around, pouring down drinks, cocktails, champagne, whiskey, whatever the footmen happened to have on their trays. Frank Braun felt a hand on his shoulder and turned around. Amy Brightower, he cried. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? She laughed. I am as good as American as anyone else here. I am a member of the club. She took his arm. Have you been through the rooms yet, Doctor? Come, I will show you. I was going to get a glass of wine. As much as you like, she cried. We have many secluded spots here, with a little cellar in each. She took him into a large, dimly lighted room off the conservatory, and as soon as his eyes grew accustomed to the dim red light, he saw that a number of tents had been pitched in the room. Side by side, she drew back the flap of one of the tents and pulled him in. Inside, everything was Persian, a small Persian lamp on the ceiling, and rugs and cushions on the floor. A few weapons were hanging on the tent walls, and there was a wooden chest, which Amy Brightower opened. Look! In the chest was a champagne bucket and some bottles on ice. Also bottles of brandy, boxes of cigars and cigarettes, sandwiches, cake, and candy. Make yourself at home, she smiled, throwing herself down on the cushion. Eat, drink, smoke, do what you like. Where did you get your dress? He wondered. She looked amazingly well, this slim woman of whom no one would have believed that she had been a grandmother for 2 years. Her marvelously even white teeth flashed like the famous string of pearls she never took off. Amy Brighthour's pearl necklace, more than 7 feet long, worth $1 million. Every New York shopgirl spoke about it in hushed whispers. Her eyes shone with the misty blue light, and the effect of mystery was heightened by the fact that she was so nearsighted. Everything in her well groomed face was harmonious. Only the thin line of her lips slightly marred her beauty. She wore a close fitting gown of silver brocade, stiff with rich embroidery, and her reddish hair was done high, with strands of pearls woven through it. She wore large pearls as earrings and more pearls on her hands. My dress, she answered. The painter Runk designed it for me, and Cyril Blackland made it. I am supposed to be a duchess from Cyprus, the mistress of Cardinal Colonna. Do you like the dress? Watch. She undid her silver belt, pulled the snap fastener, and her dress flew open like a shell. Her body lay before him completely naked, as she wore neither camis, nor stockings. With quick, snake-like gestures, she twisted her arms out of the sleeves, throwing herself back on the cushions. Now I am only in pearls, she laughed. Kiss me. He kissed her hand, poured out 2 glasses, and drank with her. You can afford to, Amy, he cried gaily, with a figure like yours. Thank you, she said, but... She interrupted herself, putting a finger to her mouth. Psst, psst, there is something next door. One could hear people talking in a low voice in the next tent. It's Marianne de Fox, she whispered. She stretched out her arms and legs, kicking off her silver slippers. Her feet, no woman in the whole world had such little feet. Sweet feet, very well groomed feet, feet which made men follow her on the street, in theaters and restaurants. Her feet, shod in extravagant, bizarre slippers, turned many men's heads, but they could drive a man insane when they were naked. Another foot freak. Amy Brighthour's feet. But he did not touch her. Something repelled him. Yes, she belonged here as much as any of the other moon ladies, and she was worth many millions of dollars, this daughter of a rich German butcher. She was hungry for every lust and could buy whatever she wanted, and she did it without much discretion or taste, just as the others did. Perhaps she was a little blunter about it, a little more natural, because that happened to be her way, but she was a whore like the rest of them. Something deterred him, not an attack of chastity, of purity, or virtue, not because he was ashamed or disgusted. He wallowed in the dirt with all these other animals, wallowed joyously in the mud, eating their food and sharing their appetites. And this naked woman, clad only in pearls, this unbelievably well-groomed body, this gleaming white skin with its alluring scent, these soft curves that seemed eternally young like those of Aphrodite herself. And yet he shook his head. Something repelled him. But she knew how to manage him. She moved up closer to him, sitting with her arms far back so that the splendor of her breasts dashed his schoolboy's scruples. She pulled up her legs, putting her feet into his lap. Your feet are beautiful, he said. They are sweet like... He could not think of anything beautiful enough. It must be the sweetest thing in the world. They are sweet like Eva Lockman's voice, he decided at last. Your feet actually sing, you know. And he hummed the tune that drifted into the love tent from somewhere far away. Almont, Ida, Troy, I can't read. These nuts is all I get out of it. Yes, the goddess herself was sitting before him, and he knew that he would give her the apple. She who was dressed in the richest pearls of the sea. Now she sang to him, and I'm not going to attempt it, since I don't know the language. And her feet chuckled and played, dancing Offenbach's music. Suddenly, kneeling before him, she put her arms around his neck, trying to pull the brown monk's habit off him. Come, don't be prudish. Why do you want me? He asked. I just want you, she laughed. You and others tonight. I want you because I enjoy taking you away from Mrs. Van Ness. She threw herself backward, rolling over on the cushions. Good God, how slow you are. And what an idea, a tailcoat under a monk's habit. Venus did not have all that trouble when she kissed her Paris. He knelt beside her, naked as she was. She put her arms around his neck, pulling him down to her. How does that Van Ness woman kiss? She mocked. Shut up, he hissed. She laughed at him, took the long strand of pearls from her neck, unfastened the catch, and wound the pearls around their bodies. That is my happiness, she cried, and my delight, and tears for other women. I am life, take me. Slowly their bodies separated, falling apart like tired snakes. He slid the pearls off over his head and sat up. Thirsty? She pleaded. His hand trembled. He spilled champagne on her body. She drank hastily. Then she stretched her limbs, and a sensuous shiver passed over her body. Remember me to Miss Van Ness, she said pensively, fingering her pearls. She is a clever woman. I am a whore. I know that as well as she does. She may have you, but I have you and many others. Many men come to a whore, and a whore needs many men. Sentimental, he smiled. Feeling tragic? She nodded and sighed. Then she laughed. I am always a little sentimental afterwards. You know, I always think that is what women are good for, and nothing else. And that holds true still more of men. It is the only thing in life. There is nothing else. That alone is our purpose in this world. Oh, if only ecstasy weren't so short. She sat up, holding out the glass to him. Pour me some more, please. She drained her glass and breathed heavily, her breast heaving. Now I am all right. Now I am laughing again, ready for new deeds. Who said that? Give me my dress, will you? As he held out the dress for her, he noticed that the wall of the tent moved slightly, and there was a soft laugh on the other side. There is somebody in the next tent, he cried. It's that Gordon woman, she whispered. She has the painter with her, the Italian, the one who played Rodrigo Borgia. He dressed, drank a glass of wine, and lighted the cigarette while he waited for her. Help me dress, please. It won't take me long. 1, 2, 3, and without a maid. He held out the silver brocade for her, and she slipped into it quickly. Then she went over to the chest and took out a large hand mirror, combs, a powder box. We have thought of everything, she smiled, while she fixed her hair under the lamp. Suddenly she put down the mirror, reached into a small pocket on her belt, and took out a little writing block in a platinum frame and a pencil. Write something in this, she said, while I get ready. Write your name, the date, and the hour. If you like, you can add something about me. He laughed heartily, walked over to her, and kissed her on the neck. You are priceless, Amy. This is just like you, so this is your collection, isn't it? Autographs from men to whom you have given your favors, written down after the hour of love. Yes, of course, she nodded. My most beautiful memories. He sat down, thought for a moment, then looked at her as if he were going to draw her, and wrote in her notebook. While he was writing, she powdered her face, put new rouge on her cheeks and nostrils, polished her nails, and put on more lipstick. At length she turned to him. Have you finished? He nodded and returned the notebook to her. She read, and you can read this because I'm not going to attempt what looks like German. Oh, but I like that, she cried gaily. The old poet knew what matters in a woman. Nowadays, all they talk about is lips and eyes, and they think they are God knows how abandoned if they talk about feet and breasts. But none of them dares to mention the most important things. You are right, Amy, he laughed. But the old poets are... But the old poet was herself a woman by the name of Clara Hotzlerin, and lived in Nuremberg around the time we are celebrating tonight. She tore off the sheet on which she had written the poem and put it back in the back of the frame. Free for the next, he asked. Yes, she said seriously. The notebook and myself, both of us. She put the mirror and the powder box back into the chest, closed it, and straightened out the cushions. And this little nest here, too. Where are my slippers? He put them on for her, kissing again her beautiful feet. She pulled him up and offered him her lips. You were very sweet, she said. Thank you, my dear. He went out to the check room to get his coat, and while the attendant helped him into it, he was hailed by Director Andre. Please stay a little longer, Doctor. I will take you home later in my car. I am looking for a fourth for a game of Marshall. My conductor is waiting upstairs with old Miss Godefroy. Godefroy? I don't know how to say it. We are going to play only for an hour or so. He helped Frank Braun out of his coat. Just then, Eva Lockman passed, all bundled up in a big fur coat. With her was a slim, graceful little thing, her face hidden in a big fur collar just like the diva. Have you had enough, too, gentlemen? She called out to them. Good night. You sang marvelously, the director complimented her. It was beautiful beyond description. There is nothing in the world that can compare with your voice. Yes, there is, Frank Braun said. Her voice is beautiful, like Amy Brightower's little feet. He ought to know, Andre laughed. She had him in her love tent. With a queer smile, Eva Lockman came closer and stared at Frank Braun. Amy Brightower? Then abruptly she turned to go and called back over her shoulder. She deserves it. Putting her arm around the little girl, she quickly went away. What is the matter with her? The director asked. Frank Braun shrugged his shoulders. She hates me, but I haven't the faintest idea why. Andre laughed. Oh, these women. Did you see the girl she has with her? You didn't. It was the little Davies girl, the one who played Columbine. Susan Pierpont will burst with rage when she finds out. At the bar, they found Miss Marlborough half naked, completely drunk, shouting Tipperary with some men. Director Andre stopped at the staircase and looked back into the room of the love tents. There goes that Garand woman. Look, she is dragging 3 men into her tent. 3 at once. Who are they? Frank Braun wondered. Footmen, probably, or chorus boys. Garand goes by size. The wild Finn Heavenpaw came down the stairs, very meek and well behaved in his monk's cowl. With him was Amy Brightower, who gaily waved to them. Salvito, gladiator, godium multum habeas, Andre called out to the wrestler. Gradium tibi ago artifex, suum quisque optimum facet, the wild Finn answered solemnly, waving to the men as he followed his lady. What? The fellow speaks Latin, Frank Braun wondered. Yes, and Greek and Hebrew. He studied for the divinity, but later he lost his faith and his scholarship. So he came over here, and here his brain does not help him much. He has to use his legs and arms if he wants to fill his stomach. In the yellow room, people were playing poker. At a corner table sat the musician Milan, and beside him, in a nun's habit, Mrs. Godefroy, smoking a cigar. She was a fat woman in her 50s, always smiling, always gay, to be found everywhere where there was anything going on, and at every party she would find her way soon to the game room. At last she called out to them, It's your deal, director. There are your chips. Count them, please. The blue ones are $10, the yellow ones $5, the red 3, and the white 1. They played, and Andre lost heavily. But the more he lost, the gayer he became. Between games, they chatted and listened to Miss Godfrey's jokes and to the latest gossip. Do you know who hooked the handsome Von Straten tonight? Baron de Becker and Baroness de Becker, both peacefully together. An hour passed, then another hour. They were still playing and drinking. Suddenly, Ernst Rosius stole furtively into the room. Looking shyly about him, he sat down at one of the tables, pulled something out of his pocket, and bent over it as if he were going to write. Director Andre called over to him to join them. Are you having a good time, Rosius? Rosius's young face shone and his eyes sparkled with excitement. Something has happened to me, he stammered. Something marvelous. I would have never dreamed anything like this could happen. Go ahead, tell us about it, Andre cried. Who was it? We are terribly curious. I would rather cut my hand off, Rosius said solemnly, than betray her name. A lady has kissed me, a lady, the most marvelous woman in the world. Only kiss, nothing else? The conductor asked. Rosius laughed gaily. Nothing else? Oh, you can't guess it all. Nothing like this has ever happened to man before. He stretched out his arms as if embracing the air. In his right hand he held the little frame. Beautiful Amy's notebook. What have you got there? Frank Braun asked. Let me see it, will you? Rosius unsuspectingly gave him the notebook. She gave me this and told me to write a poem for her. A poem about, oh God, no, Byron could describe that. Sit down calmly, the Kapellmeister advised. Eat and drink, and then you will surely think of something to write for her. The young man sat down with a healthy appetite. Frank Braun looked at the notebook, holding it carefully under the table. He pulled out the first few sheets. On the first sheet was a signature with a mediocre drawing. The second sheet contained only a signature, written in large, boisterous letters, sprawling across the whole sheet. Amato, the great movie hero. On the third sheet was written in a clear and intelligent handwriting, Bibit missit il cum illa. Missit service cum. And I'm not going to read this because I don't understand it. And under it, in old Roman letters like the script on a tombstone, was the signum of the erudite wrestler. And there's some more Latin, it looks. Frank Braun put the sheets carefully back into the frame and returned it to Rosius. I know a very nice poem for you, he said, if you want to take it down. The secretary hesitated. But I was to write it myself, he ventured. Never mind, Frank Braun smiled. You won't be able to think of anything tonight. And the poem I have for you is ideally suited. Just go ahead and write what I dictate. You read Rabelais recently, didn't you? If you remember the old French spelling, you must use it. That looks like a very learned affair, the musician suggested. Not at all. Now go ahead, my boy, write it down and write it down word for word. And he cried, and another translation I'm not going to make. Ernst Rosius edged back and forth on his chair, but he wrote obediently. Are you through? He cried at last. I can't possibly hand that in. Of course you can hand it in, Frank Braun reassured him. Right underneath, Le Roman de la Rose, with your name and date, and don't forget the hour. Amy Brighthour will love the poem, and she will give you another hour with her, if you pleased her otherwise. Rosius stared at Frank Braun, his arms drooping to his side, utter consternation written all over his honest face. How did you find out her name? He asked listlessly. Director Andre laughed. Amy Brighthour's notebook. I am in it too, twice, I believe. You have plenty of company in that book, young friend. Ernst Rosius jumped to his feet. All the color had gone out of his face. He struggled for words, vainly trying to speak. Finally, he burst out, It isn't true. That is a lie, a dirty. He could not finish the silence. Tears welled up in his eyes. Go now, Frank Braun said. Bring the beautiful lady her love book. He was having tea with Lottie the next afternoon. You went to the party of the Moon Lady, she asked. He nodded. Do you want a confession, Lottie? No, that isn't necessary. Just show me your little knife. He took it out of his pocket and gave it to her. He watched her curiously as she took the little knife out of its leather case, removing the cotton and opening the blade. The blade was shiny and clean, without a spot on it. It sparkled brightly in the lamplight. She seemed relieved as she gave it back to him. Now I know that you have been faithful to me, she said. He stared at her uncomprehendingly. But Lottie, he began. She did not let him continue. Don't talk, she smiled, putting her hands on his lips. What do you know about it? This little knife tells me more than you ever could. He thought, the hell your little knife knows, but he left her intact, the conviction that made her so happy. Let me read that again. He thought, the hell your little knife knows, but he left her intact, the conviction that made her so happy. He left her intact, the conviction that made her so happy. Weird phrasing. Anyway, that's the end of chapter 10. And this book, I gotta say, sucks. It's not good. It just, I mean, there's parts of it that are good, but pretty fucking boring, honestly. And it's nothing to do with vampires, really. Alright, bruvs, that's all.